Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Figure It Out Productions. The following video is part of our Quick Shoot series.
Hey guys, it's Adam here. So this is part 3 of a series of videos I'm doing on the 8th generation of game consoles. Basically, my assumptions of what the generation might hold, things I'm looking forward to, what I'm not looking forward to, you know, that kind of thing. So, the PlayStation 4. This came out November 15, 2013 in North America. So far, it's doing pretty well. It's leading over the Xbox One by over 1 million units. It's just under the Wii U, but is likely to catch it, which is pretty impressive because the Wii U was out for over a year. So far, they're doing okay. And I think that the PS4 is very interesting because I think it's going to be a great console, but has a very bleak future. And what do I mean by that? Well, stay tuned. So the PS4 was developed very intelligently as far as I'm concerned. Sony looked at all the mistakes they made with the PlayStation 3, and I've talked about those mistakes in a different video, so you can check that out. And they just said, like, okay, we can't do that again. We have to be more streamlined. We have to be smarter about this. We can't be arrogant, because arrogance always kills you in the gaming industry. And so they said, okay, let's just go game-centric. Let's focus on that kind of thing and see what we can turn up here. And they made a very easy-to-develop 4 console that is also not fascist. They didn't try the whole DRM thing. They didn't force any stupid peripherals down your throat. Like, you can, if you like the Kinect, we have a PlayStation camera. You can get that. Do you like the gamepad? You can get a Vita and you can use that. You know what I'm saying? They give you the option to kind of do what their competition is doing, but they don't make you do anything. And I appreciate that because in both instances of the Xbox One and the Wii U, I don't like that I'm kind of forced to use this extra thing that's really just adding expense onto the console that I'm not really getting much use out of. So I appreciate that. But at the same time, it doesn't make it a particularly unique console, but that's okay, because if I want those unique experiences, I can still get them, and that's good. And they're also approaching this from a position of desperation, which is also very fascinating, to be honest with you. I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but Sony is now the least valuable company of the 3 in the console market, which might blow your mind a little. Like, Microsoft is a $340 billion company. I mean, they're insanely ahead of everybody, but most of their money has come from, Windows, stuff from other departments. They actually don't make a whole lot of money in the Xbox division. Nintendo is now a $14 billion company. Despite its terrible Wii U sales, the 3DS, their portable devices, if you will, have just kept them relevant financially. And of course, the insane sales of the original Wii. Sony, on the other hand, is at the $13 billion mark. Which, $13 billion, that's shit. No, $13 billion is a crap ton of money. But to a major corporation in competition with those two, it's kind of bizarre that Sony's down that far. Because, I mean, there was a time where Sony was a juggernaut, man. Everybody associated Sony with quality. Now, I never did, personally. But, Sony TVs are the best TVs. Sony, whatevers are the best. You know what I'm saying? Sony now is more known for gaming than they are for anything else. It's usually not a factor anymore that they make televisions. Like, they do make them still, and people are like, oh yeah, Sony TV, okay, that's fine. But a lot of people will be like, well, I'm going to get a Samsung or whatever. Like, personally, I like Samsungs better. I'm just saying that they're known better for gaming now. And their financial position has started to decrease. They're actually starting to get into a bit of trouble. I was reading an article the other day that it's possible Sony could be out of business as a company in 2.2 years, which is interesting. I don't know how they got that specific of a calculation, but wow, wouldn't that be bizarre? So what I'm saying is, because Sony is in a position of desperation, they approach the console logically, and they've asked us, more specifically than anyone else, what do you guys want? They keep asking us, like, what kind of games would you like to see? You're probably going to get a lot of really good gaming experiences on the PS4 because of that. Because desperation is a gamer's best friend, really. I don't mean that to... Okay, that had a different funny meaning that I didn't intend, but anyway, gamers, like when, like for example, like Sega, when they were desperate with the Dreamcast, that's how you got a really good game console. You know, anytime a game company is desperate with their console, they tend to put out the best games for it because they really want you to buy it. And they just know that's how they're going to get your attention. They're going to get rid of all the stupid gimmick shit they might have ever tried. And that's where Sony is, which is why they're asking us the things we want. And that's why, one of the many reasons, I still maintain this is the only console that might have a shot at getting Shenmue 3. If you're interested in why I think that Shenmue's future, if it has one, only makes sense on the PlayStation 4, I invite you to watch that. But I don't need to go into that here. I've maintained for a while now that I think this is the last generation of game consoles. And I still think that. And I will talk about that in an upcoming video. But the one I'm most sure of will not be back is Sony. And even if they don't go out of business, I still don't think that they're coming back to hardware. I think that they built this thing to basically escape the PlayStation 3 to a certain extent, because this will be a much more profitable console. Unlike the PlayStation 3 originally, which cost $900 to manufacture, and they were only bringing in $600 per unit. That means they're losing $300 per console that they sell, brand new. This one is they're selling it for $400, and they can make them for like $380, so they're making a little bit of coin on every single unit, and then the idea is to make profits on game sales. That's always kind of been the business model for gaming as a hardware manufacturer, but as development costs of hardware have gone up, that model doesn't really work very well, which is why cartridges were kind of the heyday, because development of hardware was not too big of a problem. Granted, cartridges themselves were kind of a problem, but whatever. So I think Sony is going to move more towards an all-digital type of thing, which I, of course, don't support. But we've had a lot of evidence of this. Before the PlayStation 4 even launched, I can't remember the dude's name. It was a dude who worked at Sony, or works there now, one of the heads of the PlayStation division, who basically came out and said as much. He was like, I would like to, I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said something to the effect of like, I want people to think of PlayStation as more of a service in the future, not so much as a machine. Implying more or less that they probably aren't going to do a fifth console. You probably will never see a PS5. You will maybe see that PS Vita TV thing make its way over, but that's about it. You'll probably see other iterations of PS4, you know, the Slims and all that, but probably never going to see a PS5. I think that what they might do eventually, and now that we've had that PlayStation Now thing come about, you know, the rental service thing they're doing, I think they're just kind of warming people up to the fact that they're going to try and get away from hardware and become more of a Steam-like service. Now, whether that means they're going to just be on PCs, or if that means they're going to attach themselves to Nintendo and Microsoft's machines, provided those two continue to do anything, is hard to say. But I do think this is probably the last iteration of the PlayStation we'll ever see. And it probably will go out with a bang, is my estimation. I think you're going to see a lot of really great titles on it, and then we're going to basically salute it goodbye. Which I have mixed feelings about, because I've never liked the PlayStation in general. I've always blamed them, partially at least, for kind of what I consider to be the downfall of video games' golden age. Now, a lot of people disagree with me on that, but especially younger people. But video games used to be about dedicated game companies making dedicated game consoles to make games and compete with each other, and the only way to win was to have the best games. That was it. They couldn't fall back on anything else. They wouldn't fall back on anything else. When Sony entered the market, they kind of changed that. They kind of got involved and said, like, hey, look, we got way more money than Nintendo or Sega. Let's just make these cheap consoles, PS1s, which are not well-built machines. They do not live very long. And we'll license any damn game that comes out there, and we can make a quick buck in this market. Now, granted, that was largely Nintendo's fault, as we all, hopefully a lot of you know the story behind why Sony got involved and what they have to do with Nintendo and all that. I'm not going to bother you with that in this video. I'm just going to assume you already know that story. But the reality is they kind of got involved in a market they had no business in, and then kind of blew it up from the inside. You know, they started everybody down the path of like, well, other functions are necessary to make these things interesting. We have to push the technology so much that it becomes unsustainable. You know, it becomes too expensive to keep going. And they, of course, finally hit that wall themselves with the PS3, and now they're trying to scale it back a bit, and I think kind of prepare everybody for their departure. That's just how I think it's going. I could be dead wrong. We could be, you know, in like 5 years, PS5, you know, I don't know. That's just kind of where I see things going. So it's because of that riskiness, that desperation, if you will, that I think we're going to get a lot of good games. And that's another reason I still think if Shenmue has a future, it is on this machine. I hope that we do get those good gaming experiences, and I don't hope that they leave the market. Even though I've never been a fan of them, I don't want consoles to go away. All right, I don't. Again, I'm going to talk more about that in the consoles, like why I think this is the last generation video, even though you got kind of a good sense of it there. But it doesn't do me any favors if the PlayStation brand leaves. You know, I don't get any money. I don't get anything out of that. It's not like I'm like, yeah, Xbox forever, because then there's no one to stop Microsoft from their bullshit. You know, like let's say the PlayStation 4 never had existed. Maybe Sony said, no, we're not doing anything after the PS3. Microsoft announces the Xbox One with all the DRM shit. Everyone hates it. Then what? You know, it's too bad. You still have to buy it because your competition is non-existent. Yes, there's the Wii U, but nobody was jumping onto the Wii U when it was an option, so I don't see why they would now. I would say get one eventually, especially if my prophecy, as it were, is kind of accurate and they do start getting those killer titles out there. But right now, they're not there yet, and you probably have a lot more fun with your PS3 or your Xbox 360, etc. So, or the Wii U even. So, yeah, even though they have the lead right now, even Sony themselves has said that that's not that big of a deal. Unlike, this is the other thing that makes it interesting, actually. Microsoft, the Xbox One could totally fail. It could just collapse and fail. It almost did because of their retarded decisions they made. It could totally fail. Microsoft as a company would be fine. You know, they are so ahead of everyone else financially, it's not even funny. Like, they can crush. They'll be fine. Nintendo, the Wii U is doing miserable, and they're fine. Because they didn't overly develop it. You know, they didn't put that much money into it. They're not as big of a company as Sony or Microsoft, yet they have more money than Sony does. Sony, as I said, is now known for video games more than they're known for anything else. As Sony has said themselves, the PS4 must succeed. If it does not, it could spell the end of that company. And they put themselves in that position, but that's what they did, and now they have to ride it out, which is why, why I think you're going to get some really good games, because I think they're going to do everything in their power to attract people to the PS4 with good games. I think we've all kind of learned that just, you know, relying on media function is not enough. You know, they made that mistake already. They learned from the PS2 that, hey, if we put extra media function in, we can make a lot of extra sales, but that didn't quite work with the PS3, and it certainly wasn't going to work with the PS4, and they weren't going to take that risk again. So, good games are probably going to come to this thing. And that's about all I have to say, even though a lot of this was repeated. I apologize. So that's it for now. I want to thank you guys for watching, and please stay tuned to the next video, and see you guys later.